Hello, my friends. It's Thursday afternoon, late afternoon, and it's also the 1st of August, 2024. So it's a new month. Happy new month to you guys. Um, this is also lesson 49 in the reemergence, the diving deep back into A Course in Miracles. Lesson 49 is God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Great reminder. However, it is not always or often our what seems like our present reality. We don't hear God's voice. We hear the ego's voice. We hear the what George Harrison labeled um, on his track on Let It Be, I, me, mine, all through the day, all through the night. I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. That's what we hear. We hear the ego. There's a text, there's a section in the text of A Course in Miracles that says, God's voice is as loud as our willingness to hear it, which means it could drown out every sound that we hear, every sound that goes on in our mind. However, right now, probably for most, if not many, or many, if not most, it is unheard. So we think. Actually, it's always present. But we have been trained from a very young age to listen to the voice of the ego. God's voice is loud in its quietness. It's loud in its silence. As Herman Melville said, that silence is the true voice of God. We don't allow ourselves to be silent. We don't even know that there's such a thing as internal silence, as that voice goes on all through the day, all through the night, even during our dreams. And then we have those blissful moments of deep sleep where everything is shut down. So, lesson 49 reminds us that God's voice, that we can hear God's voice all through the day. But we need to go down deep beneath the voice of the ego. The only way I know how to do that, one, deep meditation. We could do it through prayer, or we could just practice listening, pausing. In the course, they ask for 4 5-minute sessions where we try to go beneath the voice of the ego. And then we sink into a deep listening of God, the deep listening of the Holy Spirit. And it takes a little bit of practice. I've been meditating for a long time, decades and decades. And I've gotten in some fairly deep levels of meditation. However, when I sit for 5 minutes to just consciously hear the voice of God, my ego comes roaring back in, rebelling, it seems. Why is that different than meditation? Because meditation, I am not making an attempt to listen to anything. I have the mantra, and then there's the surrender of the mantra, and then there's the mantra again, and somewhere in that period, you fall into the gap, you fall into the silence. There you have we can't even call it an experience, because it is the lack of all experience, which is why you don't even know when you stepped into the gap until you emerge from the gap. It's a beautiful experience of meditation, and it lengthens until we get to the point where we begin our meditation and we instantly slip into the gap for an untold period of time, sometimes the entire session. I don't know why it's different with when I put that label of listening to the voice of God. However, I know it seems like a much longer 5 minutes of practice than 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and 40 minutes of meditation. And yet, essentially, it's the same thing. Because when I say I'm listening to the voice of God, that's when the ego will take over and question that. It's one thing to meditate, but what makes you think you can listen to the voice of God? What makes you think that God is talking to you all through the day? Are you just going to take the words for A Course in Miracles? And of course, we don't take the words for A Course in Miracles. We sit and we practice. 5 minutes, 4 times a day. And you just practice listening and listening and listening. And let's see what happens. Let's see if we hear the voice of God. I know this isn't my first time going through the textbook, that with practice, we get there. With practice, we hear. But it does take a bit of a commitment to get there. This is only day 49. So we have a long, joyful, but also challenging road ahead of us. And I'm happy to walk it with you guys. Take care.